Welcome to the Volvo Ocean Race 2014-15 and welcome to Lisbon, the capital city of Portugal. Today is Import Race Day, race 8 in what is proving to be a crucial series, with results from the Import Series splitting the tie in the overall ocean race ranking, and with 2 pairs of teams square on points after 7 legs. Today's racing is critical as the final prize in Gothenburg comes closer into view. The racetrack has been laid inside the Tejo River just outside Lisbon, the oldest city in Western Europe. It's a city with a history that dates back to the 1st century BC. This Lisbon stopover has a special significance for Team Vestas Wind. After a Leg 2 shipwreck in the Indian Ocean, Chris Nicholson's team has been racing against the clock and against all odds to retrieve, rebuild and repair their boat and bring it to Lisbon to rejoin the Volvo Ocean Race. As the spectators arrive for today's battle out on the Tejo, they will be watching crews rested and prepared after a tough Atlantic battle that finished 10 days ago. It was a tough leg from Newport, Rhode Island that tested the crews and produced an interesting result.
Newport was good, really good.
Dongfeng went out, Matt Bright, Amber Medic in the go.
Race is this close, it's a bit annoying. I'd rather the other boats were way ahead or way behind.
The other guys are less than a mile in front, so a lot of position changing, a few head games and stuff. It's been a pretty cool day, so I think it might continue to the finish, to be honest. It's going to be a close one.
Boats behind, it's good. Let's just hope it all comes together.
It's the final stage of this race now. The 3 of us have come out the high pressure together, and it's just a drag race to Lisbon, 600 miles. Right now we're losing it.
The celebrations in Lisbon had barely subsided before 3 teams were called into the protest room by the independent race jury, deliberating on rule infringements during Leg 7. Dongfeng race team, Mafre and Team SCA had sailed against the traffic schemes or into race exclusion zones at the beginning of the leg. The sailors admitted their mistakes and the jury had only to decide the penalties for each team.
Mafre infringed RRS 48.2. Decision in accordance with Notice of Race 2.18, Mafre is penalized with 1 point to be added to her overall race score. Dongfeng is penalized with 1 point to be added to her overall score. SCA is penalized with 1 point to be added to her overall score. Means SCA is receiving 2 points penalty for the 2 different rules broken.
As the boats finished, the scoreboard showed Dongfeng had narrowed the gap by 1 point after Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing's disappointing 6th. Meanwhile, a first for Team Brunel, their 2nd in this edition, means they narrowed the gap to only 1 point off Dongfeng. 10 days later, with the point penalties applying, the story has changed. Dongfeng relegated to third place, with Team Brunel elevated to second by virtue of the import race tiebreaker. Alvi Medica also capitalised on their import performance and now sit ahead of Mafre. After having clawed the points deficit over Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing back to just 5 on the leg into Lisbon, increasing his chances of claiming the top spot in Gothenburg, Cordrelia was pragmatic about finding himself now in equal points and in third alongside Team Brunel.
Oh no, it's 1 point. We deserve to take it, and no, it doesn't change anything. I think Brunel is now at the same point. He was 1 point behind. I think we have no choice on the future leg. We have to beat him and to beat Mafre and everybody also. So because they are not so far also, and we still have a chance to come back also on Abu Dhabi. So it's simple.
But bubbling under the surface was irritation that the separation zone transgression was brought to public attention by Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing in a blog from the boat. Cordrelia was asked if he would have done the same.
And you'd seen them cut the corner.
I don't know. I don't think I will have done it.
Cut the corner or said something publicly?
Say something public about that, yeah. That's what No.
Any comments?
I'm slightly surprised because Dongfeng have this open media policy where apparently they tell everything that goes on. So, I mean, for us at the time, first of all, I was really surprised when the boats went inside. I was also really frustrated because we just crossed in front of Dongfeng, and then we lost a couple of miles because they went against the traffic separation. So we were kind of really frustrated on board. And I guess, you know, the media that comes off our boat is just telling the story of what's going on, and it just showed the frustration of what was going on. And, you know, that could have been the end of the leg right there. You know, who's to say that the 2, 3, 4 miles they gain there doesn't become 20, 30 miles and become the end of the leg. So in the here and now, as you can imagine, it's quite frustrating when you're losing out by doing the right thing. But, you know, as the leg goes on, obviously, you know, like Charles, you have to switch off, you have to forget it, you have to concentrate on the racing, and then you have to let everything take its course when you get ashore.
Well, the big rivalry in the Volvo Ocean Race this year coming to the boil. And Richard, you've done this race 4 times before. Is this sort of thing normal?
No. It's so close at the top at the moment. Normally by this stage there's a winner sort of emerging. You know, they're getting pretty dominant. Everything to be played for at the moment. Lots of pressure on air in Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing. Even more fuel thrown on the fire yesterday at the press conference. I'm sure Charles is going to be burning with ambition as he comes toward France. This is going to be a fantastic leg.
And Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing, they're back on that 6-point lead that they had before leg 7. But Ian Walker, no room for complacency.
None whatsoever, absolutely none. And the pressure that's going to be coming into them is not clear that far ahead. I think with the shorter legs, anyone could win the leg. He's going to be match racing, having to cover the boats all the way through this. He's
well,
going to be
today,
over his shoulder.
Today is import racing, and this series has proved to be more critical than anyone really thought possible. With Team Vestas Wind back out on the water now, this series is going to affect the overall rankings.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we've got 2 boats at the moment that have had their overall positions affected by the countback situation in this. And I think as we go further into it, we could well be in a situation in Gothenburg where we're deciding the race on the very last day of the regatta, having sailed all the way around the world by a countback.
Well, import race day about to get underway, so let's take a look at the scoreboard. Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing now lie in first, having taken back the lead in the import series from Team Brunel. Team SCA hold on to third and widen the gap between them and Dongfeng in fourth. With the points so close in the overall series, teams will be desperate to score as well as possible on the water today. As the teams left the dock this morning to head out onto the race, it was with renewed focus as the realisation that this racing today and this series could split the important ties that have become clearly apparent. Few people suspected that the import series scoreboard would make such a big difference as we get ever closer to the final in Gothenburg. 2 sets of teams now sit square on points. The racing today is going to be crucial for all those sailors, and nerves were clearly on show. Well, there is the image of the racecourse, and we've got a little bit of light winds at the moment, but good breeze for sailing. We should be able to get this race underway quite nicely.
Yeah, all comments coming off the racetrack at the moment are calling for a nice steady breeze. It's going to be a six-leg course, so I think we will see the breeze direction and strength change as we go through, and tide a very big factor in this one.
Well, that is a very big factor, and let's just have a little bit of a look at how the weather is laying out. 10 knots at the moment, forecast to maybe drop throughout the day, so we want to get this race underway, and it could be a bit of a challenge for the sailors, but almost a true upwind downwind course at the moment. We've been quite lucky because we are racing here in the river, but of course, as you say, the big factor, the tide, maybe 3 knots.
Yeah, it could be upwards of that. I was looking at the marks yesterday. They were really leaned over. There's sort of quite a big weight coming off the back of them. So we've got the wind going up and down the racetrack, and the tide coming down as well. So as you come downwind, that's going to take some of the wind speed out of your sails, increase it going upwind, but make the beat back up quite a bit longer.
Well, let's just talk about the start line here. With 3 minutes to go before the start, the tide is going to be taking these boats over the start line, plus a downwind start. Very, very difficult to time that one right.
Yeah, it's very tricky because you want to be sitting on the line. You have to be hanging up sort of into the tide. I mean, the problem is if you get pushed over, it's a very difficult situation to get back, because you're going to have to clear the other boats, sail upwind in light conditions, go across the line, and then come away and set your spinnaker again. You can see all the A3s set up there at the moment on the front of the boats.
Well, the big thing to mention at the moment is we have 7 teams out on the water today, and heading up our commentary team on the water, we have Knut Frostad, the Volvo Ocean Race CEO. Knut, great to see Team Vestas win back out on the water.
Absolutely, it's amazing, and it's I almost have to bite my tongue because you almost forgot what it feels like to have a blue boat out there and 7 boats on the start line. So very excited to see Team Vestas win back in the race, clearly.
And Knut, how strong is the tide at the moment on the start line area?
Well, the tide is about turning, so there is some tide now, but as you can see behind me, you see the start boat, it's running in at the moment, so basically with them when they start, and that's going to change after. But right now, we only 1.5 minutes.
Well, as Knut said, coming up to 1.5 minutes to the start line, and that tide, hopefully if it just holds down a little bit before we get to the start, these sailors might just get a little bit of a respite. One little factor taken away for them.
It'll be interesting here, because with this you want to be in the maximum flow, because of course the tide helps you. So you're going to want to be getting towards the middle of the racetrack, so you're getting as much help from the current as you can. You'll see the boats coming in from the left-hand side of your screen, so they'll be on starboard tack, the right-of-way boat. But of course there's some real jostling that has to be done here, because it's very easy to get trapped in all the other boats' bad wind once these spinnakers start getting deployed. So this is actually, downwind starts are much more difficult to do than an upwind start.
Well, in the middle of your screen, you can see the starting area down on the right-hand side, not the large passenger boat, but just off the stern of that, you can see the race control boat with an orange flag flying. And towards the middle of your screen, just coming out the mainsail of Mafre, is the white mark that means the other end of the start line. So quite a long start line for the start here in Lisbon. The race control electing to give these teams a little bit of a space, but of course, got to remember, 7 boats on the water this time, not 6.
Yeah, it's interesting here, because you look at Abu Dhabi, when you're the leeward boat like this, and you can hook the other boats to windward, which means you can see them coming up inside Vestas, you can control them and stop them from deploying a spinnaker.
For the first time since Cape Town, all 7 teams are approaching the start line for this import race. Mafre very close to getting their timing wrong down at the committee boat, and Team SCA in the middle of the line looks set to find some space and get an early lead. The A3 is out, the boats are away, and that's a great start for Team SCA.
Oh, fantastic start by Team SCA, and Mafre just clearing the committee boat, and there'll be a real tussle going on behind them with Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing, and it's going to be super close here.
Well, we've just heard from the race control that Team SCA were actually over, just punched it a little bit too early. So you were warning about this. Now they're going to have to get that A3 back in and sail against the tide and against the flow of the fleet.
Oh, that's brutal. I mean, you're going to have to fill it up, tack, you clear the other boats here. You have to be very careful not to foul the boats behind you as you go into the giveaway, and then sail all the way back to line. That's super tough. That's a hard moment for the team.
And so difficult for those sailors who, half a metre maybe, and they would have got the perfect start.
He's been a bit tough, old Bill, out there. I'll have to have a word to him later.
Well, Maffrey now leading the fleet at that windward position while Team SEA gets that A3 underway and starts making their path back up to the top of the course. That is going to seem like an age before they get back up to that start line.
That's going to be tough. But at the front of the fleet here, it's all about sort of pushing down here. So we'll see the boats really trying to push themselves down away from the wind and hold themselves in the current, get that massive, get pushed down the racetrack there. Remembering that the downwind legs are going to be quite quick and the upwind beats are going to be very long. We'll see the boats going towards the sides of the racetrack trying to get out of the breeze. Vestas here.
Well, great to see Team Vestas back on the water. Chris Nicholson is going to be delighted with what a fantastic effort everybody made to get this boat ready. And of course, this is a team that's coming back on the water rested and quite fresh.
Well, yeah, I don't know about rested. Some of these guys have been working like crazy to get this boat back together. But I saw Knut's he's been watching this and pushing it from the start. Knut, what are you seeing out there?
Well, I'm seeing very, very close line. The interesting thing is that it's a very long starboard jibe.
Well, unfortunately, Knut just making his move through the course here. We'll hear back from Knut as soon as that microphone clears up. There you can see at the top of your screen the position of the first gate. We're going to be doing 6 legs for this import race. It's going to be quite quick downwind and quite slow upwind against the tide. Maffrey in that windward position. Team SEA, the first boat to jibe over. Not a lot of room in this river.
No, not a lot of room. Interesting here looking at Brunel. They're the most lured boat here, but they're also pointing down the most. They're actually in a very strong position. So what that's telling us is these lead boats, Maffrey, Dongfeng, you see them coming up trying to position themselves against Alpha Medica. They will be having to jibe, and Brunel will be coming, sort of separating down off them and putting themselves in a very strong position. So it'll be interesting to see how this comes together. Big call at the bottom, because for me, looking at the water, they're hard to tell not knowing the true wind speeds, but they might have to peel to code zeros to come back upwind, and that's going to be a big move.
Well, Maffrey having taken the lead, Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing just behind them. Which side of this course do you think that the tide is going to be best suited? We've got Team Brunel close to Lisbon. We've got Maffrey and Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing more towards the deeper water.
Well, I think the deeper water flows the fastest for sure, and I think what we were seeing out on the opposite side of the racetrack, when I was out in the chase boat yesterday, it was really smoking down those deep water docks there. So at the moment these boats will be in maximum flow. The tricky thing will be to see what the breeze is doing as they come down there. It changes a lot as you come down the river.
Now Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing looking quite calm at the moment. This fleet is making their way down to the bottom. Of course, can Team Brunel get to that ley line? Because at the moment they only need a little bit of an increase in pressure, and don't forget the tide's pulling them down that way. If Team Brunel can lay that bottom gate, it's going to go their way.
It certainly will. And the other thing that is a factor for them, obviously, they're not going to be tangled up with other boats. They have a bit of room to leeward. That also means you can put the bow up a little bit and sort of try and move forward on the weather boats and strengthen your position as you come up on the ley lines. The trick here will be just to making sure that as you jibe over, you give yourself time to do that manoeuvre before the bottom. And I think that there will be some discussions over which sail to use here. Looks like reasonable breeze, so probably going to be going on for J1s. Obviously very close here between Alpha Medica and Dongfeng.
Well, the American-Turkish team Alvi Medica now, the bowman up the front, calling the overlap between them and the Chinese team Dongfeng. So maybe Alvi Medica wanting to stay slightly behind so they can swing their bow and jibe when they want to.
Yeah, at the moment Dongfeng controlling them. Yeah, they're the weather boat, so they can't swing down. You see, look, here comes Charles now, just pushing up a little bit more, a little bit up, and what he'll be doing is trying to drag him as far as he can to that side before you'll try and lead the jibe. So giving him a little luff here. This is it's all on.
Well, you can see just how aggressive that manoeuvre is. Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing, that's the course that the boats want to be on. Dongfeng sailing Alvi Medica very high of the line.
Yeah, exactly. So they've sort of got, here they go. They could be looking to, no, they're just going to line themselves up here. So it's all just about positioning yourself here so you can control for the jibe. Alpha Medica trying to get themselves their nose down inside Dongfeng so that they can try and stop them from jibing. Real tussle going here. Abu Dhabi have jibed.
Well, very, very close manoeuvres on the water. Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing jibe over to make their way down to the first gate. Alvi Medica sacrificing a little bit of distance to try and get a little bit of tactics, but to the left-hand side, Team Brunel, they've stayed out of trouble, and that track looks like it's worked for them.
Yeah, key moment here. So probably what Brunel will be doing here is putting the bow up a little bit. They're right-of-way boat, so they'll be pushing hard to get to Maffrey and try and jibe on their line and lead them into the bottom mark. with the tide pushing the whole fleet down the racetrack as they jibe over. What that actually does is it helps you, because normally you're trying to, here they go jibing now, so this is going to be super close. Maffrey coming up at them a little bit. Now they're going to dial away down and try and give themselves some room to clear their air. Very important moment for Maffrey, because if they can sneak forward a little bit here, get their bow out in front, then they could end up controlling this one.
Well, of course, as Maffrey come across there, they were on port tack. They weren't the right of way boat, and I was almost surprised to see Team Brunel tack. And in fact, down at the bottom of your screen, now in the middle, Alvi Medica and Dongfeng Race Team are still lock and lock. And in fact,
here we go,
Alvi Medica has got the inside, and they've been forcing the Chinese team up. You can see how unhappy the boys on board Dongfeng are. The protest flag has got up, so shortly we'll see what the jury think of that, but very, very close manoeuvring here.
Super close manoeuvring there. Now it's been a tussle there. They've been trying to get the inside overlap just so that they can control Dongfeng. You can see them trying to slow down and force them to go to the jibe. I'm going to say that that's probably a green flag from the umpires there, but they're in a much better position to make that call than us.
Well, there you can see the umpires who are being forced to make this decision. They're talking about it, so obviously it's not quite as clear-cut as we think, but the key thing here, Alvi Medica certainly have gained from that manoeuvre. Whether they have to take a penalty in a moment, we'll find out. But Alvi Medica now to windward of Dongfeng, and they look good on that ley line. Maffrey on the left-hand side, still in the lead marginally from Team Brunel. I'm surprised Team Brunel didn't force Maffrey to jibe again. Would you have held on with that jibe if you were Team Brunel?
I think they probably got to a point where they realised that they couldn't quite get to them, so they just sort of had to cut their losses and set themselves up for a good rounding here. You can see the J1 going up on Maffrey at the moment, and you can really get a feeling for how much tide is flowing here as you start seeing the boats moving on the land. You know, the boats aren't going that quick through the water, but they're really getting flushed down down the river.
This has been a very quick first leg, and once these boats go round this bottom gate, of course, they're going to be fighting the tide. It's going to be much, much slower on the next leg, but they're going to be really fighting to stay close to that shore. So a lot of tacking, a lot of battles for that perfect bit of breeze. Team Brunel jibing over with the A3, but Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing, now they jibe over on top, avoiding Team Brunel, but they're going to take that windward position on Team Brunel. Knut, from where you can see, this looks like a very, very hard-fought race.
Well, absolutely. I mean, between the top three boats there, I'm just at the gate. There's nothing in it. I was a bit surprised about Bowie not forcing Maffrey there, because he took a big hit to jibe. But he must believe strongly that it's a better advantage on the current to be closer to the land. And I'm not so sure if they were right. It looks to me that Dongfeng and Alvi Medica here are coming in with a lot of pace. Oh. And it looks a bit like a right shift, actually. Very, very close between the boats. They're soaking now. The Brunel and Abu Dhabi are sailing dead downwind. They're taking a massive loss to Alvi Medica and Dongfeng, because these top three boats now are dead slow down towards the gate. And Alvi Medica is coming with full pace. So they're going to catch up from Alvi Medica. They're going to catch up all the distance they had lost to the top three leaders here.
Alvi Medica coming in with pace at the bottom gate as Maffrey, the Spanish team, slowly just peel their bow round in front of Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing and Team Brunel, who are both neck and neck but stopped dead.
Alvi Medica having to clear around. They had a little sniff. He thought he was going to try and go inside Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing, and that's a no-no. So that would have, I'm sure Ian would have shut the door on him there. So they have to bail out and go around the back. I saw not such a good feel in Abu Dhabi. You see this big balloon in the middle of the spinnaker up the top there. That can cause you trouble as you go to deploy it up there. So it's super close here. Be interesting to see who comes out the winner.
Maffrey safely round the bottom of the course, and Xabi Fernandez will be very glad to stay out of that fight between Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing and Team Brunel. It almost meant that those two boats lost out to Alvi Medica, but the American and Turkish team happened to go round the other mark, and now they're going to be sailing up this beat on the right-hand side and maybe getting the best of the tide.
Yeah, well, obviously it's the shortest distance to the quickest relief as they come around here. Generally, there's less tide on the sides. Quite a deep harbour this though, so there is a lot of flow all the way or close to the edges. So you'll see them push right in here. Literally touch that spectator fleet and tack over. They'll be navigator time now. They'll be on the box sort of counting down the meters as they come in and get down about half of 50 millimeters under the keel and then roll it over, touch and go.
Well, of course, very important to remember that Alvi Medica, of course, they actually trained here. They've done an awful lot of sailing here, and Team Vestas Wind, in comparison, they haven't been on their boat for an awfully long time, and they've only had, almost a week basically, just to sort of shake down the boat and try and get it back into gear. The sailors are a little bit fresh. The sails haven't had so many hours on them as compared to the rest of the teams, but difficult to get back into this race and find your perfect gear straight away.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, obviously, Chris is a phenomenally talented sailor, and the guys he has on board, Tony Ray, Robbie Salthouse, I mean, those guys could sail a bathtub, so they're pretty handy. But the rest of the teams out here, they're doing a lot of these manoeuvres with their eyes shut because they've just been so much of it. Here come Team SCA coming into the mark, nicely tucked away there. They seem to have caught up a little bit from where they were, so it's all about clean manoeuvres here and hoping that the boats in front are going to force a mistake and you can capitalise on that and get back in the game. Still 5 legs to go.
Team SCA conclude the first leg in last place, having sailed over the start line on the gun, but they are in the hunt, coming back into this race and closing down the distance with Team Vestas Wind. Canute, from where you are, do you think Team SCA can get themselves back into the pack?
I absolutely think so. I mean, Alvi Medica has made a big gain here by actually going for the inside mark, going close to land, and you know, they are, as far as I can see, they're going to cross the head of Abu Dhabi here. So big gain on Alvi Medica, and this is about current. It's amazing to see the angles the guys have upwind now, because now it's a real dead upwind here. It's not laying any marks, while downwind it felt like they could almost lay the gate. So a big gain for Alvi Medica hiking the shore, and that's probably because of sailing a lot here. You have to remember that although Ian Walker was training here in Portugal, he was in Cascais, while the guys from Alvi Medica was actually training from Lisbon, down exactly where we have the import race.
Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing very tight to the stern of Alvi Medica as they duck and sail back over to that right-hand side where the tide is just slightly better.
You can see on the edges here the muddy water, so that's the edge of the bank. You know, it's basically where you can go and touch, and just in there there'll be some relief, and also the tide will hook around that corner a little bit. So you're probably going to be the one who's working the inside. You know, you're forcing the other boat out from the tide, and you're protecting the tidal relief on the right-hand side of them. So it's going to be all about just getting on that inside, the right-hand side there, and working it as you go up.
Charles Cordrelia on the back of Dongfeng race team, sailing their way into the middle of the channel before we'll see them tack over and sail back into that slightly better tide on the right-hand side. Mafre still out in the lead and looking quite good. And of course, this team, they've had to contend with another penalty point awarded to them, and that hurts the psyche.
Oh, it does hurt the psyche. Certainly hurt our psyche. It wasn't welcome at all. But you've just got to put that behind you. This yacht racing, these things happen, and focus on what's going on out there today, and it looks like they're doing that. Sort of got a nice little advantage at the moment. We'll see them probably pushing this ley line right over into the corner. We'll see them coming off the wall not far of the marina where the boats are kept at the moment.
Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing at the moment the furthest boat to the right hand side, and we're just looking to see how that tide is going to go. Alvi Medica just getting in front of Dongfeng race team, so they are clear to sail back over to that right hand side. And Alvi Medica, let's really not underestimate this. If you've sailed in these waters before and you've had your chance to try and solve this puzzle about where the tide is and isn't working for you, this is a big advantage.
Absolutely. I mean, if you know the characteristics of the harbour, you can really use them to your knowledge. The interesting thing here, it's a really good example. If we can, once you start to have a look at the advantage lines with the whole fleet there, you can really see the effect of the tide. As you push out into the middle, you can see the boats sort of advantage lines dropping down, and the boats that are over on the right, they're starting to move up the ranking. So it's all about how far out do you go versus how many tacks do you do, because that's also very slow. You know, you don't want to do too many manoeuvres, so it's all about risk and gain, the whole thing. Here go Mafre, they've just tacked over.
Well, double Olympic medalist Ika Martinez tacking Mafre on top of the fleet. They're looking quite confident out there. They're looking, in fact, actually like they've played this beat quite nicely. Stayed out of trouble at the leeward mark, and now they found a good lane to pick their way through the tide.
Yeah, it looks like the breeze is dropping off a little bit there. You're seeing the boat starting to stand up a little bit more upright now. So it's still well in range of their sails, but it looks like it just might be dropping off pressure-wise a little bit as we go to the top. It'll be quite interesting to see if Canute's seeing the same thing out on the water there.
Well, at the back of the boat you can see Andre Fonseca, both hands on the steering pedestals, just looking around, just trying to figure out exactly which way he wants to take this boat. That's a key tactician. Andre has really brought this boat alive in some of the import races. He comes to this with a lot of FAR 40 experience, a lot of TP52 experience. So somebody in this short course racing, he's very useful for this team to have.
Yeah, it's all about the fingertips. You've got Rob Greenhouse there trimming the main as well. He's no slouch from getting around a racetrack. He spends a lot of his time flying around in these small moth dinghies, so he knows his way. Here comes Charles.
Well, Dongfeng race team tacking over, and I must say I'm surprised at how far Charles Cordrelia has taken this Chinese boat out to the left-hand side of this beat. They are far, far further over than any other team. The tide, surely it's worse out there.
Well, you'd think so, but he may have found some pressure there. It looks like he's pretty heeled up, and again, it's back to the balance. You know, how much tidal relief do you go for, and at what point does being in good pressure take over from focusing on being, you know, out of the tide? It's always a balance, but looking there at the moment, I'd say probably not a massive gain by going out there. To me, I like what Alpha Medica and Brunel are doing.
Well, Canute, you're on the water, and what does it look like for the wind? Does Dongfeng, do they know something about the pressure on that side?
Well, it's an interesting one. I was looking at Alpha Medica when they actually also went quite far into the middle, and they had a massive gain close to the land on the beginning. I think that we don't have to forget the wind shifts here, and there's been a left shift. If you saw the crossing between Abu Dhabi and Alpha Medica now, Alpha Medica was further ahead of Abu Dhabi when Abu Dhabi had been the inside boat. So it's not only about the current, it is a wind shift here, and I feel the breeze is more left going upwind than it was before, very clearly. Interesting crossing here with Abu Dhabi and Dongfeng, and you see that Dongfeng has caught all the way up to Abu Dhabi. So compared to what Abu Dhabi has done here, being the inside boat, there hasn't been any gain. And I would say that Dongfeng is ahead of Abu Dhabi, and there's a big left shift on Dongfeng at the moment. So if this shift stays all the way up to the gate, they're going to have a good gain. And it looks like more pressure closer to the gate, and it looks like it's coming from the left. That would be my prediction.
Well, looking on the virtual eye at the moment, you can almost see Dongfeng race team. They might just be able to lay that top gate when they conclude the first lap, so this could really go their way. Out on the right hand side, Team Brunel and Alvi Medica now taking over Team Brunel on that right hand side, so the American-Turkish team making some good moves on the right hand side.
It'll be interesting to see because there's a bit of a point that comes out there, so there will be some tidal relief, and you can see this left hand shift just on the screen here in front of you. Nice little dark patch on the water there. That's the breeze sort of filling down to those boats, and we should see Alpha Medica sort of wind up a little bit. They're looking pretty quick today. They seem to have a nice gear out there today, Alpha Medica.
How much of the hard work by these tacticians and by these teams has already been done? Because you must be studying this water for days, if not weeks, to try and work out exactly what's going to pay today. It's patchy, there's shifts, and there's strong tide.
Oh, we've had the chase boats out every day since we've been here, measuring the tide and having a look at the breeze and just getting a feel for it. And of course, we've been picking plenty of local knowledge brains as well to put together a bit of a picture for it. But at the end of the day, it's all about what you see out there on the racetrack and how you play what you see. You just got to take it as it comes, and this will be very interesting here because Alpha Medica will want to control, Brunel as they come all the way to the ley line, and we'll see. They'll probably lead in, and then Maffrey will come up and try and set up underneath them to sort of push them out and lead into the top here. It's going to be close.
Well, some very interesting speeds that were just coming off the boat. Maffrey, the boat that you would think would be in the most opposing tide, is actually going fastest through the water. Team Brunel close into the shore, just slightly half a knot slower, so not too great. However, with all these boats sailing so close to the shore, fantastic viewpoint to watch the racing today. Great crowds out there.
What a venue. I mean, there's this natural arena for watching yachting, and there's no shortage of boats on the water out there today, and some fantastic action on the beach as well. Canute, what are you seeing out there?
Lots of boats. I mean, it's amazing. We have kept one side of the racetrack for people on land. So the Lisbon side, we have no spectator boats, and it's a lot of crowds. I mean, the beach is full. There's a lot of people on the race village there, and then on the other side we have all the spectator boats. It's a system that works really well when you have a venue like this. But I can tell you there is really good breeze here from Maffrey, and I would say that Maffrey is definitely laying the gate pretty easy. I would say that Dongfeng and Abu Dhabi too, probably. So I think this is going to be tough for Alpha Medica and Brunel. They're going to have to tack back now in a left shift. This is what we call a header going back, and that's going to be painful for them. So it's interesting to see now because Maffrey is, from what I can see, they're laying, and I even think that they are starting to sail fast. So when you saw that speed difference, it's not only because of wind and Maffrey's performance, it's also because they're starting to ease off a bit and actually sail faster because they're laying the gate quite comfortably.
You can really see in the tracks here that lefty coming into play on Maffrey. You can see the track coming up. and eventually they'll get to a point where they're on their ley line. They don't have to keep sailing on the wind, and they can just pop the bow down and crack it a little bit and get going. Brunel tacking out.
Well, as Brunel tacks out, from that image there, you can see just how patchy that breeze is. There's a big funnel of wind just coming down just to the leeward side of Mafre. There's a little bit of a breeze by Alvi Medica, but watch Team Brunel here tacking over and taking the tide right on their side, and they're just flowing sideways.
Yeah, and it's like Knut was saying, they're hard to come out of that corner, so obviously that's quite a dangerous corner to get out of, and with the breeze sort of bending around. Mafre looking nicely powered up, both Brunel and Alpha Medica looking like they're just suffering a little bit there on pressure, so pressure's still very much a key factor over current here.
Team Brunel and Alvi Medica both electing to go close to the shore to get out of the tide. However, the big factor that seems to have played on this leg 2 of 6, is pressure. Mafre, Dongfeng and Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing all playing the game towards the left, and it's working.
What a fantastic arena for sailing, though, if you think about it. I mean, so many variables, flat water, beautiful breeze. It's really showing that sailing's a thinking man's game out there today. It's all, and we're seeing some fantastic action.
Mafre looking very confident towards the top of the course. The A3 getting ready to be deployed as they reach the top gate and conclude lap 1 safely in the lead after a commanding display of tactics.
Yeah, so they've played this one. They played this one beautifully. So interesting to see they'll tack around here, give themselves a little bit of extra room towards the other side of the mark there, so they don't get washed down onto it. Yeah, it's something you have to be very careful of if you're coming up with other boats, is that you don't tack too close to the mark, because you could easily get washed down onto it. And they'll go into a nice easy set, and for them now pretty straightforward. Just keep it clean, stay under pressure. Be interesting. The rest of the boats behind will be tangled up with one another.
A very nice tidy deployment of the A3. If they can just get that J1 in over the guard wires and not into the water, then they're going to have no problems on the start of this second downwind leg. Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing looks set to round the next, but it's a good lead that Mafre have got here.
Yeah, it looks like that corner have been pretty expensive for Brunel and Alpha Medica. Difficult to come out of here. Fantastic shot this. You can really see the tide lines and the breeze line there. There's like a half moon going across the middle of your screen. That's where the current is kicking up off the bottom of the ocean there. So there's plenty going on out there.
Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing now approaching that top mark. The A3 is ready to go. They're going to be happy with second place, and of course the key thing is they're ahead of their main rivals, Charles Cordrelia and Dongfeng Race Team, and every single time that you can finish a race in front of your rival, it plays with their mind.
Oh, absolutely. There's no love lost out there, I can assure you. And it's a little bit, Ian's philosophy with this is very much that he wants to take every race as a part of an overall regatta, and he keeps it cool. He's consistently finishing on the podium, and he'll just keep working his way up. So hopefully we'll see a bit of that going on in the back of the fleet as well. It looks like Team SCA have closed up into the other boats, so it's all getting pretty tight.
Well, double Olympic medalist Ian Walker round the top of the course, and Team Brunel just slipping round the front of his bow as Dongfeng Race Team now comes round the top of the course to take third place at the moment.
And looking like a nice deployment there as well. Amazing how just this sort of type of breeze, so around this 8 to 10 knot marks, takes a lot of pressure off the crews. They can do things in the timing of the very nice manoeuvres going there. Alpha Medica coming around the other gate.
So the young American-Turkish team electing to go round the opposite mark. They will be starting this downwind leg on the other side of the tide, and that could pay for them. And of course, big problem at the front there. That A3 did not deploy cleanly.
No, so they were going for what's called a jibe set there. So as you go around the mark, you've got to turn the boat through a bigger arc and move onto the spinnaker. And they might have had a bad furl at the bottom last time, which has affected the way that they can unfurl. Hopefully it's clear now. Here goes Brunel. Looks like a pretty nice manoeuvre there from those guys. Very nice crew work. It's amazing to see. If we looked at this in Alicante and we look at it today, stuff is it's all clockwork, and I'm sure the boats are very quiet as well. Back then there would have been plenty of chat and people yelling at one another, and now I'm sure it's just a smooth operation out there on the water. It's great to watch.
And Team Brunel, this is a team that's almost kind of crept their way up through both of the rankings. They're now sitting second place in the import series, 1 point behind Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing. And the other team that's on the podium, Team SEA, the only team to have won 2 import races. Not a great start for their import race today as they approach this top mark with Team Vestas. However, enough legs for them to get back into this.
Yeah, they've done a wonderful job here to keep picking back at it. So they've managed to manoeuvre themselves up in front of Vestas now. So the key to the game here is going to be a nice manoeuvre around here. This is going to be a tack set. We'll see them turn the boat around the mark and then go into deploying the spinnaker. And again, they've just got to keep the pressure on the boats in front and force them to make the error. Just keep it clean from here. Still an awful lot of yacht racing to go. So here goes the tack. And we'll see the spinnaker come out, and the coaches will be happy with that one.
Team SEA safely onto the downwind leg as Team Vestas Wind struggles to lay the top mark. Canute, good performance from the women on board Team SEA.
Absolutely, absolutely. But I must say, I'm very surprised about the mark these guys are choosing to round, because to me the start mark, the white mark, is much better because it's further downwind. And you saw Alvimerica was actually behind Brunel at the time when they went upwind. So Alvimerica actually lost that, and they had a terrible hoist with A3. But look at Alvimerica now. They're downwind to leeward of Brunel. I mean, Brunel is going to have to jibe to get down to Alvimerica. So I'm just surprised that everybody went for the weather mark. Very, very, very surprising. It'll be interesting to hear from the skippers afterwards if they really thought that was such an advantage, because the leeward marker is going to bring you much closer to the downwind place you want to be on the gate. So Alvimerica finally got their A3 unfurled, but they lost obviously by having at least almost 2 minutes there without the sail filled with wind.
Well, the last downwind leg, Canute, was pretty patchy breeze. How's the breeze holding out at the moment?
I think it's quite similar. If anything, there's a little bit of a right shift. What people left shift upwind and left shift when you go downwind. But here on the upper side of the race course, the wind is more westerly, and further down it's more a downwind race. So you kind of want to get the maximum out of the beginning here, like Alvimerica has done. But unless they get soaked up to weather. But it looks more like a normal downwind race right now. It's going to be more port jibe downwind, and that's more interesting for us, obviously.
Well, Mafre out in the lead, and they look set to catch some nice pressure just coming down the race course there. And their lead at the moment, it's up to over 200 meters, so they are sailing well.
Yes, and all the pressure's off them. Once you get out in front like that, you can sail your shifts, keep yourself in the pressure, and not be controlled by other boats. So the other problem is back. When you're back in the fleet, you may get tangled up with another boat, and you're going to get bounced out. Forced to jibe away. So you don't get to play the game how you'd like to.
And let's just talk about the partnership here between Xabi Fernandez and Iker Martinez. They've swapped the skipper role, almost on every leg, and that's on paper that doesn't look like a great plan. But these two sail together. I mean, they've got the same Olympic medals. This is a strong partnership.
Oh, this is a very strong partnership which goes back through years and years of sailing together, and I think 4 or 5 circumnavigations. They actually sailed around the world in the Barcelona World Race, just the two of them. So I think it's quite a natural thing for them to be switching in and out. And I think having a guy like Xabi around, he's rock solid, and he's a real team player. And he just commands respect. So I don't think there's any problems with the crew on there. They're happy to be led by either, and I'm sure it's a strong combination what they're doing.
And Mafre, of course, they are really, really trying to maximise their import scores, because in the overall rankings, they are tied with Team Alvimerica, but in the import, Team Alvimerica are performing a little bit better, so then the tie split goes towards Team Alvimerica, and the American team jump up a point. Mafre, they're only 3 points behind Alvimerica in the import, so a result like we find today, and Team Alvimerica maybe a little bit further down the pack, we could see a change in the overall rankings.
Yeah, well, the next leg should play into Mafre's hands a little bit as well. I mean, their traditional training base is Vigo and Sanjenko, which is up the coast from here, so they know an awful lot about this coastline and Finisterre, and working in and out those islands and currents up there. So this next period of the race should really play into their hands. They're quite well set up for this.
Well, the Spanish boat is about 400 meters away from the next gate, and behind them the gap really has opened up. Earlier on we were commenting about how they'd pulled it up to 200 meters. Now it's touching almost 400 meters as the Spanish team get themselves set for one more jibe and then bringing it into that bottom mark. Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing, the next boat in second place, but they're a long way back now.
They are a long way back, and it's almost going to be a second race. I mean, for Mafre, it's just going to be all about don't put yourself under any pressure, set yourself up nicely with your ley lines and your times into the bottom mark, so there's just no need to make any mistakes. Now, Abu Dhabi here, I don't think he'll be too worried about Mafre. It'll be Charles that he's thinking about, so they'll be keeping a pretty close eye on them. He's to leeward and out on the right-hand side of the screen on that one. Interesting to see Brunel here. They sort of seem to have been falling out of the game a little bit here at the moment. Maybe they're just trying a little, see what the left-hand side's got to offer.
Well, Mafre reaches the ley line, one more jibe to go, and they've got to get that A3 round cleanly. The J1 is up, and that's quite difficult when you're trying to do an inside jibe with the J1 almost looking like it's out of control there, just snagging up the A3 spinnaker.
Yeah, it's a tricky one to do that because you want to go for the set, but you've got to keep that other sail clear. So actually the trimmers have got to have 4 ropes in there. So you've got one flying at you, which is the spinnaker, and then you actually stand on the other ones under your feet, and you can put them in a cleat, and then you've got to strip one off and put it on the other one. There's a fair bit going on there. Conducting the orchestra through those manoeuvres is a bit of fun.
Mafre approach the bottom of the course one more time. Their lead now up to almost 300 meters. A fantastic display from the Spanish team here. They look set to hold this lead, and barring any problems, and if they can keep playing the tide and pressure just like they have, they maybe will hold this fleet all the way to the win.
You really get to see the effect of the tide here. You can see the wake on the front of this mark, and you watch as the boat turns around. It sort of gets swept, they get swept sideways. So this will show you just how much tide there is out there. It'll be interesting to see which way he goes there, if they keep going on starboard or if they get up to speed and roll over into attack and sort of go and have a little look at the right-hand side initially, but keeping in mind how strong the left was at the top last time.
A great performance from Mafre, 1.5 laps down. They are now battling the tide back up to the top. Chasing behind them, Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing, electing to go round the other mark potentially. They're sailing slightly far beyond that buoy, so it looks set to me they're going to go around the other gate mark, and they will chase Mafre from the right-hand side of this beat.
Yeah, interesting here because the camera angle tells us that this other mark looks like it's a lot further downwind. That could be just our perception of it here. I don't know what Knut's thoughts are on it out there.
Knut, we're just wondering if you can have a little bit of a look at that downwind gate. It looks like Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing rounded a mark that was a lot further away.
No, I agree with you on that one. It's clearly the one that's furthest away. So they must have wanted to get into land there, and I think right here at the bottom it is a right shift again. I think that's what Alvimerica was making massive gains from. If you remember the last bottom rounding, Alvimerica went for that same mark, went all the way into land, and then tacked with a big good right shift. So very interesting. I'm very surprised by Brunel there, what their moves were, and Bowie Becking is not going to be happy because you have to remember Brunel was only 1 point behind Abu Dhabi, so losing that distance to Abu Dhabi now means Abu Dhabi is going to increase their overall lead in the import series. So no, but clearly there is a right shift here at the bottom.
Looks like Alphamedica like that plan as well. Huh? They're going to, oh no, here they go. They're going to jibe around the other mark here. You can actually see the distance here. It's a significant amount of sailing that has to be done to get to that right-hand side. It feels like the game plan at the moment would be right-hand side early, you get halfway up the beat, cross over to the left, and then go and see if you can find that left-hander to take you into the top mark.
Well, the big thing to note here, Abu Dhabi round the bottom mark. Dongfeng race team, who were just behind them, now has Alvimedica between them and the Emirati boat. And while this is just the import racing, this is actually proven to be very, very important. Dongfeng at the moment currently lying in 4th place in the import ranking. They will be desperate to try and close up any points they can.
Yeah, this will be interesting. So we're going to find out about this right now, if there's any gains to be made in the right, because Dongfeng, about 5 boat lengths behind, opted for the other mark, heading into that right-hand side early. So we'll see in the next 3 or 4 minutes when they cross over as to which side's really paying. It's expensive to get out to that side. Team SCA coming down from there. Looks like they've actually made some nice little gains on Brunel down this run.
Well, Dongfeng race team round the bottom, Alvimedica following them, but heading out to the left-hand side. Team Brunel now down to the bottom. A little jibe, trying to get that A3 down on the right side of the jib.
Yeah, it's a bit of a trick there. If you can get it round the forestay, then you can just smoke it. Or if you miss it, then you've got to pull it in down to leeward, and that's not so easy. So if you know you're going to tack, you can sort of just leave it sitting there, wait till you tack over, and then actually just use the jib like a chute, and then just ease the sail down into it. But looks like the boys have got the hard work to do here. They're going to have to pull it down to leeward.
And a good few lines dragging out the back of the boat. Team Brunel now round the bottom. Team SCA, they had some space here, but they look set to be following Team Brunel to that bottom mark as we can see it now. So Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing and Dongfeng Race Team, the only two boats who've elected to go for that further mark and head straight into the shore.
Yeah, interesting here because really if Team SCA wanted to be aggressive, you would have had a crack at the other mark and just gone for the split to see what you can get out of it. But obviously they're thinking a little bit about Vestas as well. They want to keep them behind them. But should be looking for an opportunity here to lead over to the right and try and sort of generate a split, get out of phase with Brunel, and see if they can find an opportunity to make some gains on them.
Team Vestas Wind, the last boat to approach that bottom mark, just down by the monument of discoveries, a monument to the age of discoveries, the age of sail. There goes Team Vestas Wind back on the water and competing for the first time since leg 2. However, struggling at the back of the course, and they are electing to follow Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing and Dongfeng Race Team to that left-hand mark as you look downwind. So they're rolling the dice, potentially initiating the split with Team SCA.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is what you've got to do when you get in this position. They're not only rolling the dice, they're going for a very big sail too. Just pulled the code 0 out. That's a big move. Knut, how's this looking?
Well, I think it was interesting. I mean, Chris Nicholson decided to change to the code 0 when he had about 5 minutes left to that gate, and that's a pretty bold move. I mean, you got to look at the other boats that have 5 months more on the water. They're not doing it, so he's definitely going for it. On the other hand, it could be a way for him to learn something here. But it's a pretty bold move, and I think we are just in the crossover between the J1 and the code 0, so he's going to lose a lot in the tacks with that big sail. But potentially if the wind drops and gets easier and lighter, then he's going to make some gains on it.
And how old is that code 0? Because of course the other teams, they've had these code 0s going all the way around the world, whereas Team Vestas haven't had the same amount of miles on it.
I can tell you that code 0 is brand new, because these teams are allowed to have 4 new sails checked in after the first initial sail set, and they hadn't really used any of their slots when they crashed the boat on the second leg. So they have 4 brand new sails here in Lisbon, and this is a brand new code 0 being furled out. They had a terrible tack there though. They really lost all the speed in that tack close to land, and now they're furling it out and sheeting it on. But we'll see if they will make again. I think Team SCA has done the better move here.
And Knut, do you think this breeze is dropping? Might this play into Team Vestas' hand?
Well, I think the breeze looks slightly lighter than it did in the beginning, I agree. It's also a more right-handed breeze at the moment. It is a shift to the right, so you don't see that big left-hand shift anymore. And that's why I think Alvimerica also decided to go around the other mark and use that right-hand shift immediately in case it shifts back to the left. But it's going to be interesting to see if Vestas makes a gain from this.
Well, now we can see the Spanish boat Mafre sailing right into the spectator fleet and tacking almost at the last minute. Those spectator boats having to move out of the way there. That's a perfect view, but maybe just a little bit too close.
Yeah, so get in amongst the action there, but obviously they're liking that side of the racetrack and want to work it pretty hard. Could be, we got a bit of a cross coming up here with Alphamedica and Dongfeng. Dongfeng right-away boat. Be interesting to see how this one pans out. Alphamedica attacking to leeward. That could be very close, actually.
Alvimedica attacking clearly in the water of Dongfeng Race Team, slamming attack right in front of the bow of Charles Cordrelia, who has to tack out, and I'm sure we will see protest flags, and I'm sure we will see the jury deliberating on that one. It looked like the American team pushed that far too close.
Yeah, it was pretty close. I mean, it's all about timing, that one. You want to do that in that situation, so you do force them to split out. But of course, if you do it too close, you'll be doing turns. But I didn't see too away for us to see if there was a protest flag to go up, but I'm sure there would have been words.
It was almost a classic match racing manoeuvre there. Alvimedica really wanting that deeper side of the water and not letting Charles Cordrelia take that side by just blocking his road.
Yeah, interesting to see that last shot there. I saw it looks like Vestas was struggling with that, little overpowered with their code 0, so that might have been a little bit too big a step in that direction. Of course, the other boats have a pretty good feel for where the crossovers are on these things. Now, the most important thing when you're sailing dead upwind, dead downwind, by using the smaller sail, you can actually sail closer to the wind because it's a flatter sail. So the Code Zero sail, you end up having to sail on the back of it. You can't point as high, can't manoeuvre just as well as you'd like to. So you stay on this sail as long as you can in the import racing conditions.
Well, patchy breeze coming down the course, and there we can see Team Brunel, Bauer Becking on the helm. Team currently in, well, actually we just had, by the computer, we've had a little bit of a lead change here. We might have Team SEA in front of them. Canute, how does it look like Team Brunel are doing?
Well, I think Team SA is doing well, but I'm with Team Brunel here, and I tell you, they are inside the spectator fleet. I'm very surprised about this move, because looking from where I am, just to leeward of Team Brunel, and looking at the gate, they have to sail through a forest of spectator boats where they are. It's obviously difficult for the spectators to understand always when the wind is shifting like now. But really, Brunel is going for a pretty risky maneuver here, because they're going to have to, on port tack, cross the whole spectator fleet. I can see the security boats and the police are chasing the spectator boats up, but Team Brunel is going the same speed, the same direction. So this is going to be interesting. Basically, a lot less wind right now, and I look at Team Vestas, and I tell you, they are looking fast. They have a right-hand shift still, a lot more wind. On Team Brunel here, we have 3 knots, 4 knots of wind. Very, very, very light. While Vestas wind is powered up with a lot of pressure in the back on the other side of the racetrack. So I think we will see some very big changes right now on the racetrack.
We're up in the lead at the moment. There was a really close cross there between Abu Dhabi and Mafre. They've really stepped up into it, and Abu Dhabi with the gain on the advantage line. One thing we noted yesterday out there was out on that where we had the import race, Pro-Am racing, where the markers where these boats were, there was no wind. It shut down about this time yesterday, so that could become dangerous.
Well, Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing making huge gains, and in fact I could just see that they were flying their Code Zero. So maybe the breeze getting a little bit light towards the top of the course, and Ian Walker electing to make that sail change based on the breeze at the top. It didn't look like it was working for Team Vestas at the bottom of the course, but maybe at the top it's all about the Code Zero. Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing now in the lead as the Spanish boat Mafre getting once again close to that spectator fleet out on the left-hand side, tacking almost at the last minute there.
Yeah, the nice little roll tack there. They use the keel to roll the boat over. And they're right on the edge of the exclusion zone there. You can see that it's looking very streaky out here. Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing looking very good on the Code Zero. It's a good time to peel to that. And further back we'll see Vestas' sail come into play. So it's obviously right on the crossovers here, and we can see them hooking up a Code Zero on the bow of Mafre as we speak.
Well, Canute, we're just wondering, we can see Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing with the Code Zero and Mafre with the J1. Which one do you think is going to pay off here?
Oh, Code Zero. I tell you, I'm with Brunel. Brunel has had a massive loss. I mean, they went way too close to land on the other side. And I'm sitting in this big wind shadow, and they went straight into the shadow. I was very surprised, because they should be able to see it. Even on the water, there's nothing here. So they look like they're even behind Vestas wind now. And this is going to be a really, really interesting change, because the further you go closer to land on the left side, there is nothing, there is no wind, and I can still see Alvimerica is going in here, and Brunel obviously took that heavy price of going in here. So very, very interesting. And the left shift that we spoke about before, the left shift is still up here high up on the race course. So you have a right shifted wind at the bottom, a left shifted wind at the top. Very, very interesting, and obviously big gain for Vestas wind with that move on the Code Zero. So that was a very bold move, but it's a big gain for them so far.
Well, we'll see how that one plays out, and right now we can see Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing having to tack, and it's such a big penalty tacking with a Code Zero. Mafre now coming up with the J1, who are on port tack. Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing on starboard, but it looks like Mafre might just creep ahead. It was 50 metres to Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing, and Mafre now just eking over the bow.
You know, you can just see how the effect the tide's having there now. When you get that shot with the boats with the land behind them, they're not actually moving against the land. So, and this tide will become a much bigger factor as the breeze sort of drops down a little bit. So this is going to be really tricky here.
And for those people that are unfamiliar with this style of boat, the Code Zero, a large masthead sail, flies from the bowsprit, flies from the top of the mast, and goes right back to almost towards the back of the boat, basically, where you sheet it on. So a big sail area. But why is it, if it gets too windy, you can't sail upwind with it?
No, it's just too much power. You know, it's too much drag. It's all about drag. Same with the 747 coming into land. The flaps come out. You slow the plane down. You're going for max power and lift. Same thing going on out here. This sail is maximum power. You know, it's all about generating as much power as you can. And of course, the higher speeds, you want smaller, thinner wings. Same thing happening out here. So same principles. We're getting down speed, so we're looking for power. Everything we can get.
Well, the Spanish team Mafre now back in the lead, having taken it from Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing, stay with their J1. Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing heading out to that left-hand side. Be interesting to see how Team Vestas Wind have played with their Code Zero.
Mafre just going for the peel now. You can see the guys just working on the handles there. They're going to halyard up, gone into the lock and unfurling now. So you'll see that sail come out. You've got to be pretty quick here to get that out and set and drop. Look at it, fantastic. So the trick to that is to immediately get the J1 off the lock and down so the air goes into the bigger sail and away you go. So it was a pretty slick manoeuvre that.
That was a very slick manoeuvre and perfectly at the right time. They pulled it back from Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing, got themselves into the lead. That lead now about 70 metres to their favour, and now the Code Zero comes out. That was beautifully done.
Yeah, very well done too, because the easy thing to do in this situation is panic and start focusing on getting to zero. They were cool and calm, said, no, let's just keep the boat moving, let's use what we've got here, get across Abu Dhabi, and then get into a situation where you can control your peel.
Well, Mafre leading the race at the moment. Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing tacking over to sail back to the top, but back towards the bottom of the fleet, Team Brunel have really lost out. They rolled the dice, sailing far out to that left-hand side as you look upwind, and it has not paid off for them at all. They've lost out to Vestas Wind and Team SCA.
Yeah, it plays beautifully into Abu Dhabi's hands here, and Ian will be looking and enjoying this. I can see him just having a little bit look back over his shoulder at the moment. But obviously there's been quite a few place changes going on in the back of the fleet here, and there's quite a bit of separation too, which is a good thing from a spectator standpoint, because it's getting patchy out there. So there's going to be a big winner and some big losers as the breeze drops and we get into the last couple of legs of this race.
Well, Team Brunel right towards the back of the fleet. They are currently lying second in the import series. Alvi Medica lying in 5th place at the moment, chasing down Dongfeng race team, who are only 1 point ahead of them in the import series. And in these import places, no one thought it would play out just as important as it has. We have 2 pairs of teams in the overall rankings tied on points.
Now these are going to become crucial, and I think all we're going to see is these point situation just getting closer and closer as we get into the last 2 legs of the race. So it's going to be all to play for, and it was a very nice shot there of Alpha Medica, nicely set up, all trimmed on hard with the big jib. So they're all slipping. It looks like the whole fleet's now onto Code Zero. So it's definitely a caving breeze. It's dropping off. It's going to be very tricky as we go into closing stages. It'll be interesting to see at what point we actually stay on the zeros going downwind.
Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing still in 2nd place, 75 metres ahead of them. Mafre, the question is Mafre safely onto that ley line to the top of the course? Tacking with that Code Zero up is a huge, huge penalty.
Yeah, we can see some quite glassy patches starting to appear on the water here, so it's definitely getting lighter and lighter. I saw Simon Fisher there standing to leeward, looking around the back of the Code Zero to see what Mafre were in. You know, what did they have between them and Mafre in terms of pressure? So I think Abu Dhabi, they'll try and put the bow down here and you know, really get as much pace on as they can.
Well, Canute, just before the boats go around the 4th gate, how's the breeze looking?
Well, it's looking like it's dropping. I mean, it's definitely less wind than we had before. There's no doubt about it. The race management in the start boat is going to think heavily now about the next lap, whether they actually try to shorten it. But it's definitely very light up at the gate. They're both laying the marks. I would expect Abu Dhabi to go for the left mark and Mafre to go for the right one, because they're both laying those 2 marks, and Mafre is not going to want to tack there with the Code Zero. So probably a gain there to Abu Dhabi, but they're still going to be very close.
Well, Mafre now look like they're slightly above that ley line for the mark that they're going to head round. They're going to have to bear around, ease the sheets and start running over the tide to get to that next mark, and then they'll have a jibe. And with a Code Zero jibing, that's an easier manoeuvre?
Well, it can be. It depends which one you're doing. They have this thing called an inside or an outside, and you always do the inside manoeuvre on a Code Zero, which means you fill it up all the way and then you deploy it all the way out. With the spinnakers, sometimes you can just let it go and jibe it around the front and put it on the other side. what is really important to understand here is now you see the current on the mark, that's 2 or 3 knots of wind. Looking at Maffrey now, I'd say she's got about 4 to 5 knots of wind. When she turns around there, you take 2 knots of current off that, so the apparent wind speed downwind is going to be about 3 knots. That's not a lot to work with, so it's going to get lighter and lighter and trickier. What happened yesterday, we went through the shutdown period and then there was a big swing to the right and we had this northerly gradient wind came in the afternoon, so I don't know if we're going to be out there long enough to see that, but I wonder if that's what Lisbon's got in her mind at the moment.
The Spanish boat Maffrey just taking back the lead from Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing to conclude lap 2, and we've just heard from the race control team that they're going to finish these boats at the next downwind mark.
Ooh, that's going to up the tariff on the boats behind here. It's going to make it super close. So Maffrey will be working pretty hard here just to stay in the pressure. You saw an attack there with Abu Dhabi. Quite an expensive move to do here because you've got to almost turn the boat to 180 degrees to get back on the course. You've got to rebuild all that speed back up again. So they'll be working pretty hard to get that boat settled into a nice angle to sail downwind.
I was quite impressed though with Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing. I mean, we've seen in this race before people struggling getting that code 0 in and then out again quickly. That looked pretty neat to me.
Oh, it's pretty neat, all right. There's plenty of horsepower on that boat. Those guys are pretty fit at the moment, so yeah, they do nice work. It's this is pretty closed up here. Interesting. Look at the boat speeds here. We've got 8 knots and 5. So obviously Ian saw something on that side. He's gone for the pressure. Pressure's going to be king here.
So Maffrey and Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing locked into a battle downwind, with Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing just getting a little bit more speed there on that buoy. You can see how much tide there is flowing across the course. Alvi Medica, the young American team, making their way up to the top of the course, and they've sailed themselves into 3rd place.
Oh, they've done well, but you're going to see these lead boats really take off now because they're in the stream. They're going to be going downwind no matter what. But this, for their boats still coming up, when they've got to sail against current, the speed's going to get longer and longer. Big attacks, bigger manoeuvres. You're going to be against the current for a longer period of time. So whoever in the order they come around the top mark here, unless they're super close, that should be the order they're finishing it.
Well, the big thing for me here is as we watch Alvi Medica, who are at the moment in 5th place in the import series, but 1 point off Dongfeng race team. And if Alvi Medica here, as they look set to do, finish ahead of Dongfeng slip further down the import rankings. And every time you slip down the import rankings, you have to win this event solely on the offshore legs. And as we've seen, that is a huge task.
Well, we've seen just how close it is. I mean, you look at the finishing times where we had at the end of the last leg there, it's just so close. I mean, the boats are match racing up this river. You would have thought they're just finishing some import training when they're coming in from a leg. So it's what this whole race was set up to do, and it seems to be doing it very well. It's producing some incredibly close racing. You see these other boats just taking off now.
Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing to windward of Maffrey, looking comfortable out on that right hand side. The lead still with Maffrey at the moment as we wait for Alvi Medica to just soldier their way over the tide. This boat does have 1 more tack to go before they lay the top of the course, so they're going to have to make a decision with that code 0. It needs to be a good turn.
Oh, it needs to be very good, and you need to make sure you're very safe on your ley lines, because you don't want to be getting up to that mark and then finding yourself having to do another 2 manoeuvres, because that'll put you dead in the water. So here they go. They're going for the tack now. You've got to be super careful when you do this manoeuvre, because you don't want to wash off too much boat speed, otherwise you've got to build it all up again. So it's all about just being timing and smooth with the rudder and what you're putting through the water. This looks like a nice manoeuvre there. They'll see that come out the other side, and hopefully they'll still have a nice 2 or 3 knots on to build speed with. Looks like they're getting a little bit of resistance in getting the sail back out.
That doesn't look too bad. All 6 pedestal positions being used to furl up that code 0. It comes out and it's deployed, and hopefully they haven't lost too much speed and they can hold on to that 3rd place. However, looking further back in the fleet, the big news at the moment, Team Brunel look like they've pulled themselves back up, and in fact Dongfeng race team are now behind them. So a disastrous turn of events for Dongfeng race team out on that right hand side.
Yeah, well, there's been a couple of changes there, because Vestas have managed to sneak through in front of Team SCA, and Dongfeng race team seem to be headed into that dangerous corner that we saw some losses in the last beat. So it'll be interesting to see how they come out of there. I guess what Team SCA will be doing here is going to Team Brunel's line and putting a nice safe easy tack in, safe on the ley lines, and head for the top mark. But it's also, the game's starting to slow down a bit out there. The breeze is really dropping off. For these lead boats, it's a pretty easy game for them to play as they head down towards the finish.
Well, if the breeze starts to die now, and in fact, if the breeze actually just vanishes, these two boats are still going to make their way towards the finish line. Everybody else has to get up around the top of the course. Canute, they're shortening the course now, and how far are we away from the finish here?
Well, I mean, it's difficult to time in all this current, but very close crossing here with Mapfre and Abu Dhabi. Basically, Mapfre decided to jibe just in front of Abu Dhabi. And I can tell you, this is not over. If Ian Walker managed to get that inside to leeward position, which he's now working on with Mapfre, there is no way Ike Martinez can make a jibe there. He will basically block Mapfre from jibing all the way into the beach. And if he can hold it there, in the end, Mapfre will ask for water. But it's a pretty good controlling position for Abu Dhabi there, and very, very close between these two leading boats. But I think in this light air conditions, when you have so strong current, there's huge gains and losses. If the wind drops and you're on the wrong side, you just start drifting backwards.
It's looking very light there too. It's getting lighter and lighter quite quickly. I just see Tooney down to leeward there, trying to get the leeward runner out of his main sheet. He's looking for everything. It must have been hanging the sail up a little bit for him. Here's a man who is sailed. I actually sailed around the world with him on Asa Abloy. A great little story about him, because we sailed all the way around the world, and at the end of the race he came up to me and he said, "Who is Martin Breaker?" And it's actually a device that we have on the front for letting the spinnakers go when it's really windy. So I had to explain to him, no, he's a really good bowman, but it's not a person, it's a fitting on the boat.
Now, how on earth do you attack this situation here with Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing? How do you cement this position? Because you want to be pushing the Spaniards right into the shore.
He's got to protect the inside here. You'll see Ian just pushing his bow down all the time, trying to protect the inside. You'll see him doing it right now, but you've got to do it without losing too much speed. And you'll see Mapfre trying to put the bow up, build speed, and then push down over him so that you can break the overlap. So Ian at the moment here will just be defend. You want to keep his nose inside him the whole time and control him, like Canute said, all the way out to when they start calling for water.
And both these boats are on port tack at the moment, so if Mapfre can jibe and complete their jibe and be on starboard tack, then Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing does have to jibe off. So Abu Dhabi need to keep out of the bad air of Mapfre, but don't want to sail in and give them too much distance.
Yeah, basically what Abu Dhabi want to do here is they want to sail them past the ley lines. You can see these two bottom marks at the bottom, and of course they can't point straight at them, so they want to sail them, keep past over those boats, so you can see with the over on the left hand side of the screen, force them all the way over there, Simo jibe with them, so jibe with them, take his wind off him, and then roll over him and lead him into the mark. But it's got perfect crew work required for this, so the tension's going to be super hot here. Be like a frying pan on that boat.
Who's got the position right? Which boat would you pick?
Well, I wouldn't. I mean, I'd like to be in Ian's position right now. All the pressure's on Mapfre, certainly considering that they were a long way in front. That was 400 metres at one point, so there'll be a certain element of where in the earth did this Abu Dhabi come from, and they've played a pretty cool game to get back into this position. You can see Ian's track there, he's just working it down the whole time, just trying to separate off him a little bit and give himself a strong position.
But it's very important for Ian Walker here that he doesn't sail too far down and let Mapfre roll over the top of him, and in fact ask for room on the finish line. He needs to be pushing him over the top. Canute, how does this look here? Has Abu Dhabi played this one right?
Well, I mean, it's just about. I mean, the wind is dropping when they get closer to the beach. I would say that the last 5 minutes, Mapfre has moved a little forward, but they cannot jibe there. They can only jibe now. Mapfre can only jibe when they're so close to land that they will crash if they continue. Then there is a rule in sailing that you can call for water. You can call for space to avoid crashing with land. But they are not close enough yet. They have to go all the way in. And Ian is going to hope that when they get all the way in there and they both have to jibe, that he will lay the finish line. And I think he will, because the slower they sail, the quicker they are drifting down with the current. And as it looks for me now, they are going to lay on starboard. They're going to lay the finish line right now. So this is a massive gain for Abu Dhabi. They have to jibe at the exact same moment. If one of them is slow in this jibe, Mapfre is starting to bear away. I can see the Spaniards are starting to scream. Ian is going to start. Mapfre is going into the jibe. They're going into the jibe. Ian has the right to stop them there. If he can nail them, I think Abu Dhabi is too far away. I don't think they can nail them. They're both jibing. Mapfre is furling out. Abu Dhabi is furling out. This can be very, very, very close. I think Ian Walker has the upper hand here, but they are neck and neck. And now if Mapfre can move forward, Mapfre did the best jibe there. If they can move forward, they are so-called leeward boat, and they have the right to actually push Ian Walker and Abu Dhabi on the wrong side of the finish line. They have the right to do that. let's see if Ike Martinez is really playing his cards here. He has the right to come up hard here, and he is coming up. He's trying to push Ian Walker as high up as he can. And I tell you, there's 3-4 knots of current here at the finish line, and I think Mapfre is going to win this. I think so. They are like 5-10 meters ahead of Abu Dhabi. Abu Dhabi is coming down, gaining probably 2 meters. It's only 3 seconds, 2 seconds, and Mapfre that cannot be more than 3-4 meters ahead of Abu Dhabi and winning the import race in Lisbon.
A fantastic battle between the two double Olympic medalists, Ike Martinez and Ian Walker, comes down to barely meters at the finish line. The racing in Lisbon concluded with Ike Martinez just snatching victory.
Yeah, I see Ian enjoying that one. He's probably looking back to Dongfeng and thinking, oh, that's good. But those ones you don't mind losing. It's a fantastic battle. So that was brilliant. Nice work by the Mapfre guys. They managed to keep them out right to the end. You've got to love that sort of finish. Doesn't get any better than that.
And these two teams were very separated at times during this race. Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing did a fantastic job to pull the race right back up to bare meters. In fact, they claimed the lead at times, and that code 0, that really was an important point, and Ike Martinez made the right decision about when to deploy that code 0, took the lead, and then just held it coming into the finish.
We could have a similar situation happening here with Vestas sort of and Team SCA now in similar positions where they started off with Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing and Mapfre in the last leg. So it'll be interesting to see how that pans out. And Dongfeng look like they've really suffered coming out of that right-hand corner as they tack over to try and get on their last lay line into the top mark there. It'll be a tough day out there for Charles and the boys.
Well, the big thing that you can see is just how much of a lead Mapfre and Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing had in first and second. They are safely through the finish line. Mapfre take the win, Abu Dhabi just a few meters behind. And then, I mean, we're still waiting for Alvi Medica to get anywhere near the finish line. So a huge lead by these two teams. How on earth did they pull that out?
Well, I think it's just they got their noses out in front there and managed to stay in more pressure for longer and just extend out the whole time. So, and there's some fantastic display of sailing there because Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing were quite deep there and they really managed to claw their way back up. But Alpha Medica done a great job as well. They were battling it out back there with Vestas and Dongfeng race team, and they've really stretched themselves out to a strong position. They've been good movers here. Nice to see Team SCA back in the mix as well here. We could be in for a good battle between them and Vestas.
Alvi Medica and all the space in the world come into the finish line in third place. They will be happy with that finish. I know Charlie Enright was hoping that his local knowledge would pay off here. This team, this port for this team has been the place where all the sailors came together and sailed on their Volvo Ocean 65 for the very first time. So this does feel like a home away from home for them. A third place, a good finish for a team that's trying to make their way upwards in the import racing, and of course their main rival Dongfeng, 1 point ahead of them in the import, is now languishing at the back.
Well, they got 3 boats between them, so that's fantastic. But these guys have really, they've grown through the offshore racing and the import racing. They've done it, as a team. They've really established themselves as fantastic sailors. It's been great to watch. Be interesting to see here in the next layer back as we look at Vestas and Team SCA. Team SCA sort of down on the inside there. We look forward to see how that pans out. Could be quite a close cross as they come together.
Well, there you can see the virtual eye situation of the boats left to finish. Alvi Medica making their way to the finish line. Team Vestas Wind now punching out into the deeper water further to the right, and this was a boat that was right at the back of the fleet, and if they make a good move here, they could roll over the top of Team Brunel, they could roll over the top of Team SCA. So still places fighting it out. Now we go for the jibe. It's an inside jibe for the code 0, and the breeze does look a little light.
Yeah, that's quite a nice manoeuvre there. So the inside jibe, that's here goes Nico giving a hand getting it in. Look at that. Get it on, boys. No, but that's a really nice manoeuvre they just said on the inside, blew it through the front, so they've done well.
Well, Alvi Medica have now jibed. They're on the ley line to the finish as that race between Team Vestas Wind and Team SCA looks set to come all the way down to the finish line. You can see just how much breeze we've lost on the water at the moment. Light winds and the tide doing most of the work. As you look at the rudder at the back of the boat, barely moving through the water really, but that tide, 2-3 knots of tide, rushing them towards the finish.
Yeah, you can see them sort of, they're looking for power all over the place. Charlie's got his hand down there on the keel the whole time, sort of just trying to find that ultimate heel angle as they go through. Probably barely 100 metres to go for them before they get over the finish line there. They'll be very happy with this result.
And for this team, they are a young team. I mean, Will Oxley is a veteran of the race, but everybody else is, you know, in their 30s or younger. And the skipper, Charlie Enright, 30-year-old American skipper, and as he comes across the finish line here, third in the import, they've had some great results in the offshore as well. Do you think this team, has they surpassed expectations?
Oh, they've certainly come up to par, and I think in many cases they have surpassed the expectations. They're doing a great job, and you know, they're a small team that's delivering quality across the board. So it's fantastic to watch, and they're doing a very, very good job.
Well, as they cross the finish line here, just in front of the World UNESCO Heritage Site, the defensive tower of Lisbon, crossing the line, Alvi Medica take third place in the import race. A good result for the young American team.
It'll be interesting here because as we Vestas and Team SCA, if Team SCA can get a little bit of breeze and maybe get out in front and stretch out, they'll be driving onto starboard. We could find ourselves, if they're close enough, hard to tell here, but if they're close enough, we could have a repeat finish coming up here. Team SCA will be reeling, I'm sure, over that start. I think that was a pretty tough call. I'd actually question the fact if they were over or not on that one. But of course, I've pretty biased eyes here.
You might be a little bit biased as Team SCA's shore manager this year. You might be a little bit biased, but there you can see in the middle of the course, Team Vestas Wind and Team SCA replaying the battle that we've just seen from Mafre and Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing. So these two boats locked together coming down towards the finish. Team Vestas Wind looks set to cross the line without a jibe. It'll be interesting to see how Team SCA are lined up. So little breeze on the course at the moment.
Yeah. And you see there's quite a nice wake coming out of the back of Team SCA at the moment. So obviously they've got some pressure. This jibe that they do is going to be absolutely crucial, you know, how they get about that. I think Team SCA might even have someone up the rig. I think I saw a spot there, unless that was a fly on the screen.
Chris Nicholson and Team Vestas Wind making their way down to the bottom. And Chris Nicholson here, he's done 4 Volvo Ocean races before, and he'll be desperate to come back into this edition of the Volvo Ocean Race for the final few legs and really make an impact. There you could just see going out of shot Team SCA right at the top, somebody at the top of the rig. Do you think that's a problem?
No, I don't think so at all. That's Sarah up there, I think, probably talking about the breeze, what she's seeing, but she'll also be up there to kick the battens over because, no, it's Liz actually. One of the problems they have with these mainsails, they're so full, sometimes in the light air the battens are so stiff that you can't pop them over, so you actually have to swing around and hit them with your feet to get the main to set on the other side. So I'm sure Liz will be she'll be talking about how to best make the most of the pressure that they've got at the moment.
And how on earth do you communicate from all the way up there? Is it just a matter of shouting as loud as you can?
Yeah, I think so. She's just got to make sure you look down when you shout. A few hand signals, and as you can see her looking around there, pretty comfortable up there.
So Team SCA to windward of Team Vestas. Team Vestas look like they're laying this finish. Canute, who's going to pop out ahead of this one?
Oh, here goes the jibe.
It's a really close one, I can tell you. It's SCA is going into the jibe there. They are, well, I think SCA can make it. You know, they have the advantage of being the starboard boat. They just have to get that code 0 as quick as possible out here. This is a dead even call at the moment. If anything, I would say that this is Team SCA's. They have the starboard advantage, and Vestas is going into a very, very early jibe here. That's going to be painful for Vestas because SCA has already get it out. Very fast jibe by Vestas. That's Simeon Timpoint, he's having his muscles out. And I think Vestas can make it. They can just basically, Vestas is just making it. They're just on the weather boat. Normally that would never work. It only works because of the current, because they are backing the Con-Zero. And they are not even a starboard boat. This could be a protest situation. This could definitely be a protest situation. This is a protest situation because now Vestas is port and they are almost hitting the finish mark. I think they are going to hit the finish mark. Let's see. Yeah, yes. They are hitting the finish mark. And I think we may see both boats almost colliding here. This is really, really, really risky maneuvers. Vestas hit the finish buoy, and they are stuck on the finish buoy at the moment. Really stuck on the finish buoy. So this is not going to go well for Vestas. They're going to get the penalty there on that finish mark. That's for sure. And I can see the umpires is looking very closely at this. And the red flag is ready to go up from the umpires. Vestas has hooked the finish mark with the rudder or the keel, difficult to know. And they are stuck there as the girls on Team SCA are drifting past them, but obviously you are not allowed to hit that finish mark, so Vestas is not gonna get away with that one. That's a tough one. And they're not really getting out either, and now they have to work themselves around and back up again and refinish. That's going to be a tricky one.
I can tell you what, he gets a red flag from the SCA shore manager as well. I hope he didn't ding my boat there. I might be in for a long night tonight.
Well, we did talk earlier about the fact that this team won't be as drilled in as the rest of the fleet and having to do a last-minute jibe to avoid another boat, and of course it all unwound for them and they look almost stunned. Come on guys, you've got to come back and sail through the line. Team Brunel now take the finish spot that the Team Vestas Wind was almost about to have. They are now going to be finishing in fifth place for Team Brunel. Not a great race for them. They rolled the dice on some of those legs and it didn't work out.
No, they got stuck there out in that hole pretty early on, and probably were looking for a silver bullet on a couple of sides there to get back in the game, and they just didn't come to them. Dongfeng they've still got a long way to go to here. Charles will not be happy with that, and there's a lot of boats between them, so that's going to affect his overall standings in the import race results a lot.
What a disappointing finish for Bauer Becking on board Team Brunel. Only 1 point away from Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing going into the import race today, and now he's going to be slipping quite a few points behind. We can see the race control team trying to work out exactly how they're going to move that mark.
Well, I'll tell you what they're actually doing. They're picking the crew member up off Vestas. He got off the boat to push the boat off the mark, and he's not actually on board, so I'm not sure how the rules work on this one, but he was left on the mark. So he cleared the boat off, the boat sailed away, and he couldn't get back on. So they're down a crew member.
Well, Team Vestas Wind now with that code 0 out and deployed, they're going to have to make their way back up against the tide, sail clean of the start line area, and then come back through that start line. So really unwanted hard work for Chris Nicholson and his team here. Now they go for the tack, that long furl with the code 0. Hopefully they can lay over the top of the start line, the finish line, sorry, and then bear a way down through it to finally finish this race.
Nico won't be happy with that one, but to be honest with you, it was a pretty risky move to stick it in there with that jibe like he did. He should have known better.
But here's the question though, if it was that close for you and if you were on board Team Vestas Wind, would you have gambled?
Probably not.
Okay, fair
Probably
enough.
not on that one. It was,
fair enough.
Yeah, not on that one, but I'm a bit more conservative maybe. But maybe he knew that he could get that jibe away. But I would say all in all, the door was looking pretty shut to me.
Well, Canute, I'm just wondering, where do you think that all went wrong for Team Vestas Wind there? Canute, I'm just wondering if you can give us your insight there with that incident with Team Vestas Wind. Where do you think it went wrong?
Well, I think what happened, first of all, right now they are into doing a penalty turn. So they're doing a penalty turn which they've been given by the jury. And what happened was that SCA had timed that jibe perfectly, basically perfectly, because they were going to cross close to the closest mark to Vestas, and there was no space for Vestas to close that mark. So the only thing Vestas could do there was either to go behind SCA and accept the loss, or try to jibe in front of SCA and think that you can work yourself down to the mark. But with the strong current, they were being pushed on the wrong side of the start line. So very risky maneuver by Chris Nicholson. Now he's going to try to work himself back to the finish line. But I tell you, I feel for the guy, because there's 3 knots of current here. It must be something like it. And he's going to struggle to get back up the race course in his light wind and make it all the way back and refinish the race. But the right sportsmanship is to do that, and he looks like he's working on it, but he's going to be dead last there.
What a very disappointing import race for Dongfeng race team, now crossing the finish line in 7th place. Charles Cordrelia loses any real chance of being able to make his way further up the import rankings, and now if we have a tie going into these final leg finishes as we get nearer to the final finish in Sweden, Charles Cordrelia is just going to have to hope he can do everything on the offshore legs. Import racing not going the Frenchman's way. Now my big question with that incident with Team SCA and Team Vestas is, what was it that Vestas got the penalty for? Because they should be able to ask for room at the finish. Did they get the penalty for going for room at the finish, which Team SCA dutifully, they bared the way, they allowed them to go in there, but Team Vestas couldn't hold that position and hit the mark?
Well, I think Team SCA were on starboard, and they probably completed their jibe, and then they came in there, and so basically once you're on stub and you're in your final approach, you can't just jam it in there because it's narrow in the front and wide at the back and expect them to open the door up for you. So you've got to come around the back, and I'm sure he was penalised for that, but also for hitting the mark. So all in all,
Well, a real baptism of fire for Chris Nicholson. Welcome back to the Volvo Ocean Race. No one's giving you an easy ride today.
Hey, but it's all about the viewing, and what a great... we've had two spectacular finishes. I'm going to go for a Sean Fitzpatrick call here, the great All Black captain, and say I think yachting's been the winner on the day here. It's been fantastic.
Well, Chris Nicholson brings Team Vestas Wind finally down within reach of the finish line. Very disappointing to see this team struggling there to clear that line. And umpires have confirmed that Team SEA did give them enough room, so the penalty being for hitting that mark. And maybe you've got to hand it to them. You've got to gamble with these things. You've got to try. But as you were saying, it was looking very, very risky. Canute, do you think that Team Vestas could have done anything different in that scenario and maybe could have pulled that out to their advantage?
Well, it's difficult to say, but the reality is that it was the mark, and they could have had if they had space, that they would have maybe made it. But the problem was the current. They completely underestimated the current, because by the time they went into the jibe, they were drifting so fast on the wrong side of that mark, and it was scary to watch. So, but on the other hand, what was for them to lose? Not too much. They could have sneaked in there and put themselves between the others. And now what everyone feared was that Vestas was going to upset the rest of the scoring. Didn't happen today, because in fact Vestas finished now last.
Well, they got very upset upsetting the SCA shore manager for us having to take a bit of boo paint off my lovely pink boat. I can assure you I was probably the most nervous man within a 100-mile radius as that manoeuvre was pulled off.
Well, but Canute, a disappointing import race for Team Vestas Wind, but their goal for coming back here, it's just to compete and just to get themselves back in the race, really, isn't it?
Yeah, they had a terrible start. I think Vestas probably had, apart from Team SEA, who was called back, Vestas had the worst start. And in the race today, if you didn't have a good start, you were very far behind. And people probably got a question, how is it possible that we have this huge distance between the third boat and the next of the fleet, or even between the third and the second? And it was just because there was breeze for the first leaders, the two first boats, to get around the top mark, and then the wind dropped. So everyone else was fighting the current going upwind, while the leaders were drifting fast downwind. So it was a bit of a strange race, but I must say that Vestas got around pretty nicely. But these guys are rusty. They haven't had much of a training session. They just got the boat in the water. They haven't raced it at all since 5 months ago, 6 months ago. So first maneuvers with Co-Zeros probably today.
Well, thanks, Canute, for all your analysis out in the water. Let's take a look at the scoreboards from today's racing. Mafre take the lead, followed closely behind Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing, a result that came down right to the wire. The disappointment for Team Vestas Wind finishing in 7th place, but that position really coming down to a split-second decision and a penalty right on the finish line. Well, Richard, a fantastic day of racing. Let's take a look at the overall series and how today's race has impacted them. Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing hold on to the top spot and now move 4 points clear of Team Brunel. Team SEA hold on to the 3rd spot. Team Alvi Medica closing down. Team Vestas Wind struggling to get off that back line on the overall import scoreboard. Well, Richard, great racing. Your final thoughts for today?
Well, I can tell you what my final thoughts are. Both my phones are going off at the moment, so I've got SEA management chasing me hard. What a fantastic day's yacht racing out there. Couldn't have been better. Wonderful finishes, and hopefully I haven't got too much work to have to go and repair when I get in.
It almost looked like you were going to, coming into that finish line. Well, that was a fantastic day of racing. We've got another day of action lined up tomorrow. Leg 8, Lisbon to Lorient. It starts tomorrow. We're on air 13:45 local time, 12:45 UTC. The best way to view all the action is to download the Volvo Ocean Race app. Puts the race right in your pocket. Analysis from all the navigators, all the teams, and all our experts, including the stories and all the images from the racing out there on the course. A good race for Mafre and the Spanish team, who are proving themselves to be a real force to be reckoned with in this year's Volvo Ocean Race. Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing holding on to the top spot in both the import and the offshore series overall. But join us tomorrow for that all-important leg to Lisbon, France. A shorter leg, 647 nautical miles. The sprint further into Europe as we get ever closer to deciding who will be our final Volvo Ocean Race winner and our champion at the finish line in Sweden. Join us tomorrow for another great day of racing.